Hi everyone. Today I'm going to go over the lesson for Tuesday, Wednesday. But before I start going into the lesson, I kind of want to talk about, this week in the asynchronous learning. So, guys, I know that it is a crazy time right now. I know that many of you might be like getting power in and out. Maybe some of you are looking at this on your phone, or maybe some of you won't look at this until next week, like in a few days or whatever, because you've had so many other things on your plate. And I totally understand. If you are struggling with anything, please know that that is, you taking care of you first is priority. And if I can do anything to help you, let me know. But I just wanted to make you aware that we're in this together, and I know things are crazy, right? So I'm going to go over the lesson. I want to go over a couple of things. If you do have access to the internet, before you start falling behind or something, there are some things that we have to do in case you haven't done them yet. For example, we do have the essay that was due on, it was due on Monday, but then all this, weather thing happened and there's been a lot of outages. So it is a test grade, the essay. If you haven't done it yet, that's fine. Just get it done as soon as possible, because that is a test grade that I will be grading soon. I'll start grading the ones that have been submitted already, but you don't want to get too far behind. So if you do have access to the internet, please start making sure that you've taken care of the expository essay. We have the district writing sample on Eduphoria that I also posted. Now we also have a second one that's coming up. Those are district mandated. Those are not for me. Those are for the district. They require every single student to provide a writing sample. For English, they require 2 samples. So that's why we have a second one. Please make sure you get that done, but know that that is not an essay. Think of it more like a journal or a reflection. You do have to write, a good amount so that they have a sample. But I don't need you to like brainstorm or plan or like break your head over this. Just respond to the question as if it were a warm-up, for like a good 10 minutes, and then move on. And then we have the district interim, which we did a few weeks back, about 2 weeks ago. That also is like a district thing. It is a major assessment that's used to kind of see where you guys are at. So if you haven't taken that, please take that. I've opened it up for everyone. Now, the second Eduphoria district writing sample, as of right now, as of today, which is Tuesday, they have not given me access to unlock it. So when you see this video, it may already be unlocked if they gave me access to it. If they haven't, then you won't see it on Eduphoria. That means that I haven't been given access to it. So just keep an eye out for whenever it pops up, because again, I'm not the one that can, they need to give me access before I can open it for you guys, and I haven't been given access. So I'm kind of waiting on that. But again, things are a little crazy right now, so I don't know exactly when I'll be given access to that. So today's lesson is mainly just notes. So we're starting drama. We're starting drama, and we're starting Romeo and Juliet, which I'm really excited about. Romeo and Juliet is such a classic play that almost every freshman reads. With that being said, I do want to give you guys an update as to how we're going to be doing this. So I know all this week we're asynchronous, so this entire week will be, you'll be doing this on your own time. But starting next week, when we're back at school, I will be having live Zooms. So my Zooms will be open at the beginning of class every day. Now, if you can't make it, I will always record the lesson for you guys and still, post it. But now you have the option to join live Zooms. And I really hope that you do, because as we read Romeo and Juliet, all of our activities are going to be based on this play. And if you are not showing up, then you're responsible for reading those parts that you miss on your own, because otherwise you're not going to know what's going on. Or Romeo and Juliet is written in what's called Elizabethan English, and so there's a lot of discussion that goes on in the classroom as to what's happening, what are they saying, like the hidden meanings and things. And so it's really valuable if you can show up to live Zooms. Again, if you can't totally get it, I will post it, I will record it, but I think you'll find it really beneficial and a good time, like to be able to show up and read the book with us, read the play with us. So just be aware, going forward next week, we'll start live Zooms. Let me see what else as far as announcements. I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's lesson. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So today's lesson is, well, first, like this is today's is just notes. It's just an introduction to drama and Shakespeare. Your assignment really is just filling in the blanks of the notes as I go through them. Now you can always go back and look at the PowerPoint yourself. I'm basically going to go over the notes, but you will have access to what I'm going over on the PowerPoint. So if you need to like do it at your own pace or whatever, you can. But you're just filling in the blanks as I go over these drama elements and this information about Shakespeare. So before I start going over the PowerPoint, I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and pull this up if you haven't already, this Intro to Drama assignment. And while you guys do that, I will pull up my PowerPoint. So go ahead and open up that Intro to Drama and Shakespeare notes. That is your assignment for today. I'll be going through the PowerPoint so you can listen and type as you go. You can fill in those blanks. All right, so here we go. You want to follow along with your notes sheet. Again, you have access to this PowerPoint as well if you need to go back or you want to review them at your own pace, totally fine. So drama, this week we are starting with drama. Now drama is literature that is meant to be performed, their plays. There are two types of drama. We have a tragedy and we have comedy. So tragedy shows the downfall of a powerful hero. Now it's generally sad, right? And some examples of this are Romeo and Juliet or Titanic. They don't have a happy ending. Comedy, it's created for amusement. It is funny. And some examples of these are Hamilton, The Breakfast Club, Mean Girls, the musical, and The Office. Now, the way that a play is divided is two ways, or it's got two divisions. We have acts. Now, acts are the major units of a division in a play. So these are like chapters. So we have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then within those acts, we have what's called scenes. So scenes exist within each act of a play, and they usually either change whenever there's a time change or a change in setting, or they're directing their attention to someone else. But these are like paragraphs, kinda like a set of paragraphs within the play, within the acts. There's also some important elements in plays. So we have the cast of characters. Now, this is usually in order of who enters first. It's basically a list of the characters that are coming out in that scene or in that act. And like I said, occurs before each act. We also have our setting. It's the where and the when of the story when it takes place. For example, the time period. Our plays always have a plot. So those are the major events in a story, right? But they're in sequence. So we have our exposition, which is where we see our characters, our setting. We have our conflict, our rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, which is when the conflict is resolved, the end of the story. So there are two main types of characters. Now there's multiple types of characters, but our biggest ones are the antagonist and the protagonist. So the antagonist is the key person working against the main character. For example, in Batman, it's Joker. And then protagonist is any or main character who usually stands for good, in this case, Batman. In our plays or in our drama unit, we see stage directions. Our stage directions are written in italics, so when they're slanted, right? And they're inside parentheses. Now, our stage directions describe setting, actions of the characters, reactions of characters, evoke feelings, and they tell the performer how to deliver the line. They contribute to the story/plot, they contribute to characterization and to tone. And here's an example of stage directions. So you've got the characters or the performer's line. So we have here Jane and Richard. Here's Jane's line. This is what she's supposed to say. And then in italics, and slanted, right, in parentheses, we have the stage directions. She sees Richard with the body and screams, jumping, horrified, through gritted teeth. So basically, these are the directions that they're supposed to act out or how they're supposed to act while they are performing. Speech devices. Within plays, we have these speech devices. We have monologues and soliloquies. So monologue is a long speech by one character to another or to themselves while others are present. A soliloquy is a speech where the character is on the stage alone, seemingly talking to themselves or the audience about their inner thoughts and feelings. So monologue is a long speech, but either they're talking to someone or people are around them and they are aware that people are around them. A soliloquy is someone who's like kind of looking out into space and talking out loud to themselves, right? It's supposed to be where it seems like they're alone. We also have asides. Now, we've talked about asides before. We've talked about parenthetical asides, which are comments in parentheses. But because here this is a play, people are speaking, an aside is just a short comment directed to the audience or another character that is not heard by other characters on stage. It is used in other styles of writing, like informational text. We talked about it, our parenthetical asides. All right, drama vocabulary. So you guys have this in your notes section. We've kind of talked about some of these already. Monologue. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. Our monologue. Remember, it is a long speech that someone is saying to another person or with others around them. So I'll give you a minute to go ahead and match it to the correct word or to the correct letter. Sorry, you're matching the definitions to the term. Soliloquy is a long speech that someone is saying by themselves. They are alone, no one is around them. They're kind of talking out loud. Dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the performers or the character in the play does not. Paradox. Paradox is kind of like a contrast between things. Script, I think you guys can figure out script. I will skip the definition. I won't give you an explanation of that. An explicit theme is when the author or someone in the story explicitly, like straight up, tells you the theme. So I didn't give you the definitions word by word as you have them listed here, but I gave you a pretty good idea of what goes where. All right, our next part is match the vocabulary words to the correct definition. Again, doing the same thing that we just did. In this case, we have implicit theme. So explicit was when the theme is directly stated. Implicit means that the theme was implied. They don't actually tell you what the theme is, but they give you clues so that you can kind of figure out what the theme is. A character foil is a character in a story that is put there so that they could contrast with the main character and kind of highlight some of the characteristics of the main character. Mood is how the reader feels when they are reading something or when they are watching something. So the performers in a play may create a scene to create a certain mood, to make you feel a certain way. Sarcasm, I think you guys can figure out sarcasm. And tone, which we've talked about all year, is the author's attitude about something. And if you guys need to go back, the definitions are here so that you can use them to answer the matching. All right, we are going to move on to Shakespeare. So we've got a Prezi here. Actually, I think I already had it open over here. Yes, I do. All right, so our notes on Shakespeare. Like I said, we're reading Romeo and Juliet, which is obviously written by Shakespeare. So I am going to go over some information regarding Shakespeare. So Shakespeare, William Shakespeare was born in England. He lived from 1564 to 1616. He died when he was 52 years old. He did have a wife. Her name was Anne Hathaway, not our current Anne Hathaway, and had 3 children: Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith. Now, William Shakespeare had his plays were performed in this theater called the Globe Theater. You can always come back and watch this. We won't watch it right now, but it's there if you want it. But one of the questions I get asked sometimes is like, why are we reading this? It was from so long ago, or why are we reading this? We can't even understand it because Shakespeare's plays were written in what's called Elizabethan English. But here's why Shakespeare is still so important today. He has had an immense impact on modern English. So in fact, Shakespeare brought into usage around 1,700 new words in English. So words like amazement, lonely, and suspicious were all brought in by Shakespeare. He also contributed popular phrases that we continue to use today, such as all that glitters isn't gold, break the ice, wear one's heart on one's sleeve. All those cheesy phrases or you might consider them cheesy or cliche, were created by Shakespeare. And then in addition, as we discussed earlier, Shakespeare also created plots and characters that still resonate today. So a lot of the times, there are a lot of movies and books and TV shows that are based off of stories from Shakespeare. And I'll go ahead and show you a video on that in a second. You would never think that, oh, that's based off of a Shakespeare play, but it is. The theme is very similar. I wonder if it was, it's this one here, it skipped it. So this is kind of an idea of how Shakespeare still influences so many things from today.
William Shakespeare. Shakespeare! Shakespeare. Shakespeare. Shakespeare!
You have not experienced Shakespeare until you have read him in the original Klingon.
This is not Shakespeare.
Oh, I did Shakespeare in the park, Max. I got mugged.
It's been 400 years since Shakespeare's death, and all the world is still his stage, and we men and women merely his unwitting fans. Every single day, whether we know it or not, we use words and phrases that Shakespeare added to the English dictionary.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
They know 30, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a wild goose chase over here at Nakatomi Plaza.
I was originally designed for assassination missions.
She was the oldest living Lutheran. Now she's dead as a doornail.
Shakespeare, it turns out, isn't just a literary titan, he's a literary termite.
Avenge me!
Burrowing into all sorts of places you wouldn't expect. Chewbacca isn't just grieving the severed head of his buddy. It's actually a nod to Hamlet.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Alas, poor Yorick.
That line and that skull have been cropping up ever since. There are more than 400 movies based on Shakespeare's plays, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, more than any other author in history. Romeo and Juliet alone has been staged for the screen over 50 times.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo. That for that Romeo.
Even if you don't think you know Shakespeare, you know that balcony.
Romeo, oh, Romeo.
Of course, there's the most famous Shakespearean line of all.
To be or not to be, that is the question.
It's actually a speech about suicide, not a topic you typically hear about on Sesame Street.
Be or not a bee.
Or Gilligan's Island.
And so I ask to be or not to be.
Or a Muppet Hospital.
Make up your mind, to be or not to be.
Or an alien space station. Of course, it's not just classic lines and scenes that inject Shakespeare into our daily lives. His stories are driving the plots behind some of the biggest series on television. House of Cards, the tale of a power couple with vaulting ambitions, sounds a lot like Macbeth, with a dash of in-your-face confessionals from Richard III.
One heartbeat away from the presidency, not a single vote cast in my name.
Sons of Anarchy, a saga about the leader of a biker gang haunted by the death of his father and power-hungry stepfather, has been called Hamlet on Harleys. In Empire, a record mogul has 3 children vying to inherit his hip-hop kingdom.
And it can only be one of
A situation that goes nearly as badly for him as it did for King Lear.
Wherefore thou, Romeo?
And it's not just culture, it's commerce.
Thou betrayest thy family's cell phone plan.
Shakespeare may be 400 years gone, but he's in high demand on Madison Avenue.
William Shakespeare said that all the world's a stage, and men and women are merely slaves.
And one man in his time plays many parts. Many more parts than Shakespeare himself could have ever guessed.
Hey, Shakespeare, would you write a TV sitcom for a Klondike bar?
Methinks not.
What you talking about, Willie?
All right, so that was just kind of showing how, even though Shakespeare was written a long, long time ago, right, so many different things are influenced by Shakespeare, and so many different shows give nods to Shakespeare by using some of his phrases and things like that. So that's what I was talking about in that last part. Whoop, now I've lost my place here. Let me see, where was the last part I was in? All right, so he's written many texts. These are just some of them. You don't need to know all of that, right? Just know we're reading Romeo and Juliet, and it was written by William Shakespeare. Again, like I said, there are some lines that still are some phrases that Shakespeare wrote that we still use today. Here are some of those. Here's that video we just saw. Now, Shakespeare was not just a playwright, so he didn't just write plays, he also wrote sonnets and poems. There's Shakespeare. Now, our Elizabethan period. I want to go over this because this influences the setting in Romeo and Juliet. Our setting does take place in an Elizabethan period, and our book is written in Elizabethan English as well. So we have a pyramid, basically, or a hierarchy of classes. At the very top, we have the nobility, which basically includes the people who run the country, which are the kings. They live luxurious lives. They inherit it, so they come from money. The queens. We have the gentry, so our gentlemen, our knights, our squires, and our gentlewomen. Now, these people did not have to work with their hands for money. They worked for the nobility, right, for the kings and the queens. So yes, they weren't nobility, but they were up there, right? Then we have what's called the yeomanry. The yeomanry was the middling class who saved enough to live comfortably, but who at any moment, through illness or bad luck, could be sent into poverty. Now, these people lived simple lives. We're talking about farmers, craftsmen, tradesmen, usually had land or a shop in town. And then at the very bottom of the pyramid, we had the poor. So the beggars, the orphans, the peasants, the servants, the sick and the disabled, vagabonds. Most worked hard for little payment or recognition. And then some of them just gave up because, again, they worked hard and got really nowhere. The clothing, so once we get into Romeo and Juliet and we'll start seeing like clips of the movies and things like that, you'll see that they are dressed differently because of the time period. This is just to give you an idea. I'm not gonna go, you don't need to know about the music. Now the Globe Theater, this is where many of Shakespeare's plays were performed. It was built in 1598 in London, England. It kind of looked like that. It was octagonal shaped. It was open from the top, and it had different levels. Blanked out for a second. So 3 stories high, 100 feet in diameter, octagonal shape. Now the stage was 43 feet wide, 23 feet deep. 1,500 people could sit comfortably inside the Globe Theater. All of the actors were men. So back then when they did plays, it was all men acting. So they would completely paint their faces so that they could fit whatever role they were playing. But because of this, many of them died from lead poisoning in the makeup. So just a fact out there, an interesting fact. I'm going to show you this video about the Elizabethan theater.
When Queen Elizabeth I ascended the throne in 1533, she wanted to restore the Protestant religion and maintain the peace and stability of the kingdom. She was a patron of the arts and was a huge supporter of William Shakespeare, who showed his Renaissance spirit through his literature. She strongly encouraged learning, education, and literacy because she had gotten a very impressive education as a child. During her reign, she gave playwrights freedom to break from England's past style of theater. They were not binded by the religious plays and stories because Queen Elizabeth banned them in 1559 to help stop violence over religion. Traveling actors began performing around London in courtyards of taverns called innyards. Temporary stages would be built and actors would perform in front of a maximum of 500 people. The rising crime and bawdy nature of some of these plays, fighting, drinking, caused the Church of England to ban all plays within the city limits in 1596. There was also a ban on theater due to the bubonic plague. This is why theaters were outside the city limits on the south side of the River of Thames. This city was called Southwark, where Shakespeare built his famous Globe Theater. It was a round wooden building that was believed to be 100 feet in diameter. It had 3 stories, an open roof, and hosted a wooden stage approximately 45 feet wide and 5 feet high. The theater made use of a real cannon that was filled with gunpowder and an area which could hoist actors off the ground, known as the heavens. The stage housed a gallery just above the stage wall. It was called the Lord's Room and used for rich members of the audience and the upper classes. The Lord's Rooms were considered the best seats in the house. The cost was 5 pence, and cushioned seats were provided for these elite members of the audience. Other seating include rooftop galleries for the upper class, which range from 3 to 4 pence, and the pit area surrounding the stage. The poor section was known as the groundings, and they paid a penny to stand. The Globe held about 1,500 people. There were no women actors at this time, so adolescent boys dressed up in wigs and dresses to play women. The actors wore lavish costumes, used blunt swords. There were sound effects. It was living, breathing theater. To advertise plays, flags were hoisted above the theater. White meaning comedy, red meaning a historic play, and black meaning a tragedy. The theater was crude and common and was seen inappropriate for women. Some upper-class women even wore masks so they wouldn't be recognized because of the nature of such shows. The Globe Theatre was London's entertainment of that day, and that's why so many flocked to the theaters. Shakespeare wrote plays which even today are performed and entertain thousands and thousands of people every day.
All right, so there was a little clip on the Elizabethan theater. Let me exit out of this. I promise I won't make you watch it again. Here we go. Let me pause it. Whoop, and I just exited out of this. Sorry, guys. Huh. Let me double check that I'm not missing anything. Well, I'm not sure why it's not playing anymore. Let me see if there were any more notes to give you from that Prezi. All right, so no, that was it. Now, who's on whose side? So a list of characters that you'll see in Romeo and Juliet. So in blue, we have the people who are on Romeo's family side, which are the Montagues, and then in red, you'll see the Capulets, which is Juliet's family. Now, just to give you kind of a brief brief information, Romeo and Juliet's family are basically at odds. They do not like each other at all. So that's why it's like who's on whose side, because it's not like they all live peacefully in the same city. They don't. They live in the same city, but not peacefully. So we have Romeo. Obviously, he's a Capulet. A Montague. Lord Montague and Lady Montague, those are Romeo's parents. They are obviously on the Montague side, on Romeo's side. Mercutio, he is Romeo's best friend. And then we have Benvolio, who is Romeo's cousin. Balthasar is Romeo's servant. And then we have Abram, who is a servant of the Montague family. For the Capulets, we have Juliet, Lord Capulet and Lady Capulet. The nurse, now she raised Juliet. And we have Tybalt, who is Juliet's cousin. Samson and Gregory are servants of the Capulet, and then Peter is the servant to the nurse. We have Friar Lawrence. Now he's kind of neutral. Paris, he's more loyal to the Capulets, even though he's kind of neutral because he doesn't belong to any one of the families. He is trying to marry Juliet, so he's trying to be in good standing with the Capulets. And then we have the prince. He's the Prince of Verona. He is family of Mercutio and Paris, so kind of neutral, doesn't really sway for either one of the families. He's more concerned about making sure the city is in peace. And that is all I have for your notes, guys. So on Thursday, Friday, our assignment will consist of reading the first act and scene and some scenes in Romeo and Juliet. So make sure that you keep an eye out for that lesson. I'll post more instructions. And if you need anything at all, please email me, let me know. I am here to help. Okay? Have a good one, guys.